Here we're going to check out how we can access the FeatureLayer object JSON properties using the ArcGIS API for Python. So open up the flproperties.py script from the FeatureLayer object folder. In the previous video, we briefly saw the properties property for a FeatureLayer object where we accessed the name property from the properties returned. In this video, we'll take a bit of a longer look at the FeatureLayer object and the properties available from the properties property. Up top, we are importing our GIS class so we can access our ArcGIS Online content, and we're also importing the FeatureLayer collection class from the features module so we can create a FeatureLayer collection object from which we'll access a FeatureLayer object. We first access ArcGIS Online using our GIS class and supplying in the home string. We'll assign our GIS object to a variable called AGOL. I'm going to use our GIS object and the content manager get method, supplying in our feature service item ID, which I'll paste now from my notepad. The get method will return an item object that will assign to a variable called item. Then I'm going to use that item object and create a FeatureLayer collection object using the from item method and supplying in our item object as the item parameter. Our FeatureLayer collection object will assign to a variable called FLC. We're going to print the feature layer properties for our point feature layer in our feature service. Here I'm using the feature layer collection object and the layers property and accessing the first feature layer from the list returned. This will be our point feature layer. We're going to assign our feature layer object to a variable called FL. I'm then going to print our feature layer object and the properties property. This is going to return a JSON definition of the feature layer properties. I'll simply run the script. And here we can see a whole host of properties returned for our feature layer. You see the ID of 0. We have the name of the layer, point layer for training with FDM. It is of type feature layer. We have the service item ID. This is the item ID that I supplied in to get the item object. We don't have a display field set. We see our description that we set when we created our feature layer. We have an editing info dictionary where the dates in here are ArcGIS Online epochs, and there is a link below this video of how we can convert those into a more readable date format. The relationship property is a list. This layer currently has no relationship set, but we are going to set relationships later on in this course. The data is not versioned, and it does support append and calculate. This means we can use the append function and the calculate function for a feature layer object. It also supports truncate, so if we had data in there, we could delete all records at once. And if we scroll down through, you can see there are many other properties available for a feature layer object. See here we have info in estimates. The estimates property for a feature layer object will return the extent and the number of features within that feature layer. There's also a link below this video that shows the estimates property in action. The min and max scale are the scale ranges. There is none set. We see the extent for the feature layer. We have our spatial reference. The drawing info contains a renderer, which is the symbology. We don't have M or Z values for our feature layer. We're not using a global ID, so we don't have a global ID field. And we can see the current fields for our feature layer that we set when creating the feature layer, our object ID and our viewpoint name, along with the indexes. We set the primary key ID for object ID, and ArcGIS Online has added a shape index. Scrolling down to the bottom, we can see that the current capabilities for the feature layer is simply query. In a future video, we are going to alter the capabilities to enable editing. You can access the properties using dot notation like we saw in the previous video with the name property. I'm just going to comment out our first example. And in our second example here, we're going to use list comprehension to isolate our point layer for training with FDM. So for each layer in our item object, so here we use our item object layers property. If the layer properties name is equal to our point layer for training with FDM, then return that feature layer object. This comprehension always returns a list, and we're interested in the first object in that list, which will be a feature layer. I'm going to assign that to a variable called FL. We're then going to print the name, type, geometry, attachments, OID field, and capabilities to screen. So for the name, we are using the name property, and we will see that is our point layer for training with FDM. For type, it should return us feature layer. Geometry type should be our Esri geometry type point that we set when creating the feature layer. Has attachments should be false. Our object ID field will be our object ID, and our capabilities, as we saw, should be query. So I'll run this script, and we can see that for name, we got the name of our feature layer. Our type is a feature layer. Our geometry is Esri geometry point. Attachments is false, but we are going to turn on attachments in a future video. Our OID field is our object ID, and our capabilities is currently set to query only. So now you know how to access feature layer object properties in ArcGIS Online using the ArcGIS API for Python. Make sure to continue on to the next video in this series, and also make sure to subscribe. Take care.